Okay, we're going to talk about hovering today. Now, hovering is a maneuver that a lot of people want to learn to do, but I find that they get themselves into trouble before they even start learning to hover, and it discourages them and they never end up trying it. There's about three or four things you need to be able to do before you should hover. Number one, it's not so much something you have to do, but you have to have an airplane that can hover. You need something with power, obviously, to hover the airplane, but you need something with power to pull the airplane out of trouble. You also need something with big control surfaces. You can see this Yak I'm flying has big surfaces and allows me to have good control of the airplane. If I put this on low rates, you still can hover it, but if you get yourself into trouble, it's a lot harder to get out of it. So something with high rates that has a lot of control in the air, 3D rates, that works out to be more than 35 degrees on the ailerons and elevators and 45 degrees on the rudder. That's kind of a good starting point. You need to be able to do that with your airplane, otherwise you'll find very quickly that you'll have trouble hovering because your airplane just simply won't respond to your commands. The next thing you need to be able to do, and I hate to say this, but it really will help you, is you need to be able to fly that rudder. You need to be able to fly knife edge. That's very important because when you're hovering, your rudder saves you a lot. Knife edge is important, both canopy facing, belly facing, both ways, point rolls, those all have to be done nicely, as well as inverted flying, both using your rudder and your ailerons. This will really, really help you learn to fly. If you can fly upright and inverted with your rudder, circuits, all those things, and do slow rolls and loops, that will really help you with hovering. And finally, a good stepping stone into hovering is Harriers. So look at my video on Harriers and learn how to do those. For those of you who don't know what a Harrier is, it's when you fly the airplane with a nose up attitude slowly, and you basically are going to turn it with your rudder and keep the wings level with your ailerons. You can see here, this is basically what we call Harriering. So you're just flying the airplane around using your throttle to control your forward speed and your altitude, and your elevator just to keep the nose up, and coordinating your rudder and your ailerons together to keep the airplane flying. And basically, if you can do these, then transitioning into a hover isn't going to be very difficult, because essentially you just start adding more and more up elevator and a little more power and get the airplane vertical, and boom, you're into a hover. Now, if you're first learning and you're not comfortable doing that, but you want to try some hovers, how I recommend starting is to pull into a vertical upline and just slowly start reducing power. At first, it'll be easy to control because you have some forward speed. And as you reduce the power, the airplane will go more and more into feeling like it's in a hover until you actually are hovering up high. The nice thing about this is that you can hover it up high, see how it feels, and then if you do fall or lose control of it, let the airplane descend down, pick up some airspeed, pull out of it, and do it again. Keep doing these, what I call pogos, over and over. Bring it up. At first, on a vertical climb, there isn't much correction needed. It just kind of flies itself vertical. But as you slow it down, it becomes more and more tricky to hold. And then once you're comfortable hovering up high, you can start bringing it lower. And bringing it lower, although it seems scary, it is really going to help you progress because it allows you to see the airplane a lot better, and it makes turning and making quick reactions a lot easier when you can see what's happening. So you're going to enter basically from an upright Harrier and just start feeding in that up elevator, touch the ground there, into a hover. Now, one thing you'll notice instantly with hovering is that you have to hold right aileron. If I let go of the aileron here, you'll see that the torque of the engine actually wants to make the airplane spin. And this is the difference between a hover and a torque roll. A torque roll is where the airplane is spinning. I'll exaggerate it, but that's more of a torque roll, where the airplane's spinning and you're trying to keep it in one spot. Whereas a hover, you're going to try to hold it always wings facing you and hover canopy top and keeping it fairly in one spot as smooth as possible. So first thing, obviously, right aileron, holding the wings level. The next thing I did to remember orientation was you push and pull the elevator the same way you push and pull the nose of the airplane away. You see, I pull the nose in, I push the nose out. Now, also, the rudder works the same way. I want the nose to go left, I give it left rudder. I want the nose to go right, I give it right rudder. And these four combinations of the pushing and pulling and the left and right is what's going to control your torque roll. And then you just need to feed in that right aileron in order to keep the wings level. And short of all those tips, there really isn't anything you can do other than just keep practicing it over and over again. I find, you can start once you get comfortable to really help yourself practice. Do like hovering circles around yourself where you hover the airplane in a circle and the camera will obviously follow it, but you can hover it around you, keeping it banked a little bit and keeping the wings spinning. These will help with practice as well. And then once you get better, you can start working on things like belly facing, hovering, and torque rolls and all that good stuff. But for now, keep that canopy facing you and just learn these simple orientations. And then if you do get into trouble, the way you get out of it generally is to give it power and get your wings, get whatever's happening straightened out and just climb. Get away from the ground, and then once you're away from the ground, reestablish yourself and try it again. The other thing I'll say is don't hover for 3, 4, 5 minutes when you're out at the real field practicing. There's a few things that can go wrong doing this. Number one, you could overheat your engine. If you're sitting there and hovering your airplane for a couple minutes, your engine isn't getting a lot of cooling. You could really heat it up and lean it out, cause damage, or it'll quit and your airplane will crash. The other reason I say don't hover for a super long time is because I find if you hover for like 3 or 4 minutes straight, you start to your eyes start to wander and you're not really paying much attention, and oftentimes you can get it kind of into trouble without really seeing it. So the best way I found to practice hovering is to put it into a hover it for like 20-30 seconds, then fly out of it, go fly around for a while, practice maybe your point roll, something else, and then come back to it and do it again. And I find that that's the best way to learn to hover. So hopefully these tips have been helpful, and keep at it. Just practice it over and over again, and in no time you'll be able to hover nice and smooth.